Welcome back. Good Friday morning, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. I'm Maria Bartiromo, and it is Friday, March 24th. It is 8 a.m. on the East Coast. The Manhattan grand jury delayed in the possible indictment of former President Trump. They'll reportedly be reconvening on Monday of next week. Constitutional law professor Jonathan Turley writing this in the New York Post, explaining, quote, why Alvin Bragg's case against Trump is falling apart. Joining me right now to talk about that and the overall Biden agenda is the former Vice President of the United States. Mike Pence is here. Mr. Vice President, it's great to see you. Good morning, Maria. Good to be with you. Thank you so much for being here. I want to get your take on this case. Alvin Bragg, way before this, he said, I'm the one to get Trump. I mean, now people are questioning whether or not this has total holes in it.
Well, I think that's what bothers the American people the most, is that you not only had this Manhattan DA, but you also had the Attorney General here in New York literally campaigning on going after one particular American. That doesn't sound like equal treatment before the law, which every American deserves. And I have to tell you, I'm hopeful that the Manhattan DA's office is rethinking this. It just smacked to me from the very first time I heard about it as a political prosecution. It's just the American people deserve better right now. I mean, we're living in very challenging times in this country. American families are hurting. You see that in some of the polling that you were talking about earlier in the show. And all of this drama, all the media's obsession with my former running mate on this and other issues, I think is not putting Americans back to work. It's not getting our country on a solid footing on the world stage. And I hope we can move past this. But it's also this two-tiered system of justice that, frankly, extends far beyond this case and extends into the FBI's targeting of parents at school board meetings, targeting a father who was standing with his son outside of a pro-life clinic. I mean, it just, and you know, all through the Trump-Pence years, we saw the politicization of the Justice Department. And that's why I really want to commend my old colleagues in the House of Representatives, the weaponization committee that's been established. The American people deserve to know the facts, and we just need to reset so that Lady Justice once again is blind in this country, and we reaffirm our commitment to equal treatment under the law for every American.
I'm glad you say it that way, because that's all really people want. We just want to know that everything's fair. And that, you know, it's not that the people with the guns are going to come after us at some point, honest people, because of politics. But I think the American people understand this. I think the American people are getting smarter and smarter about the dirty tricks that are played. President Biden's approval rating is dropping like a rock. It is near his all-time low right now, Vice President. A new poll from the Associated Press finds only 38% approve of the job the president is doing. 68% say they disapprove of his handling of the economy. Yesterday, the president committed several gaffes. Watch this.
Drug companies that raise prices faster than inflation. Now, that's all right. We like babies. You don't have to worry about it. So it's okay. It's all right. In fact, I like babies better than people. Literally, as my sister would say, I wrote the violence against women act with my own paw. This is a time for celebrating extraordinary women who have made their mark in history, strengthened our nation. And like Jill, the First Lady, the first full-time lady, the First Lady who works full-time, in addition to being the First Lady.
Yeah, I mean, sir, I don't know how you feel about all of this. I mean, we're not only watching it, our adversaries are watching this as well.
That's right. Look, you know, people always ask that question. I've known Joe Biden a long time. And, look, do I think he's lost a step at age 80? Sure. But he's always been that wrong, Maria. I mean, whether it be policies at home and abroad, what we've seen over the last 2+ years of this administration are policies that have literally weakened America at home and abroad. The disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, that landed right on the president's desk. He's the only one that could have made one bad decision after another that cost American lives and embarrassed us before the world and emboldened our enemies. But here at home, I'm not surprised to see that 68% number. I'm surprised it isn't higher, because as I travel all across this country, I hear one American after another telling me how much they are struggling under the weight of the worst inflation in 40 years. I was up in New Hampshire not long ago, and a guy started a restaurant, Tempesta's, great place. You ought to check it out. He said to me, you want to know if inflation is affecting us? He said, eggs went from a nickel to 30 cents a piece here.
Wow.
And he said, I got this, all my employees are like my family here, and I'm having a hard time keeping people on the payroll because of inflation. And again, you know, you know this better than anybody else on television. The whole economy, all the problems in our economy are self-inflicted.
Yes, they are.
The runaway spending, the higher taxes, literally advancing one policy after another that's been stifling American growth, and the American people are tired of it. And I think it's setting the stage. I think it's setting the stage for a great American comeback.
Even at the end of the Democrat leadership in the House, they jammed through another omnibus. You're talking about $5 trillion plus in borrowing. No wonder we're up against the $31.6 trillion debt ceiling right now.
Yeah, we have a national debt the size of our nation's economy for the first time since World War II. And Joe Biden's policy is insolvency.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, he said there are those of us that are saying in the debate that, look, we've got to start to talk about common sense and compassionate reforms of entitlements for younger Americans. Otherwise, in the next 30 years, Maria, by the most reasonable estimates, we're going to add another $120 trillion to that national debt.
Wow.
We're going to crush those 3 granddaughters that Karen and I welcomed into our family the last 2 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But not under a mountain of debt, under a mountain range of debt, and be faced with nothing but bad choices. And that's why I just think more than ever, you know, the American people know they voted a new majority in the Congress, and I hear people saying we've got to get back to fiscal responsibility. We've got to set our nation on a pathway of solvency, and we've got to end the war on energy. We've got to secure our southern border.
Yeah.
And these are all policies. These are all crises that are a direct result of the policies of the Biden administration, which is really astonishing when you think about it.
It really is. And by the way, you know, all of those issues are national security issues.
They are.
So we're worried about the security of this country with a wide open border, with America's standing behind China, it feels right now. So I'm wondering, is this guy really going to run again? I mean, you know, we've talked about the 2024 election.
Yeah.
What are your plans? What would be the right path for you in terms of when you announce that you are actually a candidate?
Yeah, I assume let's take Joe Biden at his word. I think he's going to run again. I would expect.
Can you beat him?
Well, I honestly believe the American people are ready for change. And they're ready to get back to the policies that we advanced in the Trump-Pence administration. You talk about border security being national security. I think it's great to go back to that.
Yeah.
You know, this whole issue, we think of 5 million people who've come across our border over the last 2 years since essentially the Democrats, you know, ended construction of the wall and effectively ended the policy Remain in Mexico that
of your administration, yeah.
That was all succeeding. And we talk about the human trafficking, this avalanche of people and humanity, but we don't talk as much about fentanyl, that literally there is no community in this country that is not being beset by fentanyl. Border security is national security. The American people know that. But with regard to me and my family, I tell you, we continue to give prayerful consideration to entering the national race. We're getting a lot of encouragement around the country. I really do believe the country's in a lot of trouble. And now more than ever, all of us need to reflect very deeply on what we can do individually and what we can do collectively to put America back on the right path.
Are you going to be forced to testify over January 6th? An Obama-appointed judge is weighing whether Jack Smith can compel your testimony after Trump said executive privilege. Where do you stand on that?
Well, let me say I'm limited by court order about what I can say about that process, but I think I made it very clear. And not only would it be unprecedented to have a vice president testify,
it would be
president with who they've served, but I also believe that it's unconstitutional. I mean, when I was serving on that fateful day of January 6th, I was serving as the president of the Senate over a joint session of Congress. The Congress, members of Congress and those involved in the legislative process have protections from the exercise of executive authority. It's called speech and debate.
Right.
It's critical to our separation of powers. I mean, we don't want to live in a country where an executive a president could haul members of Congress into court where there's a policy dispute that literally is centuries in the making.
Yeah.
I stood strong on the Constitution on that fateful day, and we've taken a strong stand on the Constitution. But we'll let the court sort it out.
Mr. Vice President, let me get your take on this influence peddling that is in plain sight in the Biden administration, because in the face of all of this failed policy, the Biden family is claiming that it's not true. Joe Biden the other day said it's not true that his family received money from a Chinese energy company. We have the bank records. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer told me that there could be up to 11 additional deals. So they got $1 million plus on that first deal, and there's 11 other deals that they're going to be investigating. What was he doing? Selling the office and pocketing the money?
Well, I think the cover-up by most of the media and by big tech in the fall of 2020 of the Hunter Biden laptop stories was a disgrace. And literally be
right before the election.
Right before but it would be 2 years later that even the New York Times here in New York City would admit, well, yeah, it was his laptop. I'll never forget seeing Joe Biden in one of the debates cite 50 different intelligence officials who said that it was likely Russian disinformation. And I thought, could you just ask your son if it was his laptop that he turned in at the pawn shop? And you know, look, the American people see this for what it is. I think it's Congressman Comer and House Republicans, Jim Jordan, I know he'll be on a little bit, all deserve to be commended. The American people have a right to know. I must tell you, I can't really relate. I mean, when I was vice president, my son wasn't sitting on the board of foreign corporations. He was sitting in the cockpit of a fighter jet, serving the United States in the Marine Corps. But the American people deserve to know what was going on here. They deserve to hold this president and this administration accountable. And again, it's just one more example of what appears to be a two-tiered system of justice.
That's right. But again,
and not just in official institutions, but also in the media. There seems to be tremendous interest in pursuing Republicans and conservatives, and almost no interest whatsoever in getting to the truth when it comes to Democrats or this administration.
And this also speaks to the national security issues. How are we supposed to believe that the commander-in-chief is going to make the right decisions as it relates to our number one adversary if he and his family have taken all of this money from Communist Party-affiliated companies? I mean, what can you tell us about China? You were the vice president. You were in the Senate for all of that time. You know the threat and how it's worsened. What can you share? China
is the greatest strategic and economic threat of the United States of America in the 21st century. You know, one of the things I'm proudest of the Trump-Pence administration is we changed the national consensus on China. The American people know what's going on. I mean, the hearings about TikTok yesterday. I mean, it's not new that China is gaining access. China has literally been stealing billions of dollars of intellectual property from the United States of America for years. Our administration called them out on that. We see their military provocations in the Asia-Pacific, human rights abuses, political meddling around the world. We called them out on that repeatedly. We held them accountable. $250 billion in tariffs. This administration ought to be doubling down on strengthening our economic sanctions, our economic tariffs, rather, against China.
Yeah, that's
but also,
right.
remember, Biden's new budget, essentially, once you factor in inflation, that literally is a defense cut at the time that China is building up their military and flexing muscle out in the Asia-Pacific. This administration is literally cutting defense spending. Totally unacceptable. The only way we're going to achieve peace in the Asia-Pacific is through strength and standing strong for America's interests and standing against whether it be the compromise that TikTok represents to America's personal information or intellectual property theft. We need to stand firm and tell China that we are no longer going to tolerate business as usual.
It's a great point that you make about military spending, because here we are at a moment in time where our adversaries are rising and they are getting more aggressive. Look at Russia and China now in partnership. Look at the Saudis and the Iranians. I mean, it's just extraordinary. And yet we're talking about a decline when compared to inflation in Biden's budget for military spending. What about Ukraine? Tell us where you stand on the Ukraine money, because we recognize that we don't want to see death and destruction in Ukraine, and that obviously Vladimir Putin is a bad man. But should we be sending all of this money when we have so many problems here in the U.S.?
Well, I truly believe in what came to be known as the Reagan Doctrine. In Ronald Reagan, 1985, he said, look, if you're willing to fight the communists in your country, we'll give you the means to fight them there so we don't have to fight them here. And I believe that that it is absolutely essential, as the leader of the free world, as the arsenal of democracy, that the United States of America continue to provide the Ukrainian military the means that they require to repel the Russian invasion. Look, ours was the only administration in the 21st century that Russia did not attempt to redraw international lines by force. And I believe this is a moment of testing. I think the Biden administration has been slow. I mean, most recently they promised 33 Abrams tanks in January. Here we are in March, and they're saying it's going to take another year.
Well, the same with Taiwan. Well, aren't there contracts in place for Taiwan to be getting this armament that it needs to face off on China, and they still haven't received it?
Yeah, we ought to be making sure that Taiwan has the military means to defend themselves. But I will tell you, I really do believe that Ukraine is not. Ukraine is not our war, but freedom is our fight.
Yes.
And I think it's imperative that we provide the Ukrainian military what they need. They've demonstrated their strength. Karen and I were actually in Ukraine a year ago. We crossed into the border after the initiation of hostilities. We saw the flood of humanity, women, children of every age fleeing from the violence at the outset of the Russian invasion. But I would tell you, anybody that thinks that Vladimir Putin will stop if he overtakes Ukraine has another thing coming. Yeah, it's clear he wants to reassert the old Soviet sphere of influence in Eastern Europe, and so I think it's a fight we have to wait. The one thing I'll disagree is Joe Biden said we're there as long as it takes. Maria, it shouldn't take that long.
Right.
If we gave them the means, the resources, the weapons. They've already demonstrated their capability to push back the Russians. And I think it's the best way to restrain China is for the free world to make it clear that we'll not tolerate the use of military force to redraw international lines, either in Eastern Europe or the Asia Pacific.
I mean, to me, it feels like China is winning right now. I mean, here it is trying to act like the power broker on the world stage, right? You know, talking to Zelensky, talking to Russia, talking to the Saudis and the Iranians.
Right.
I want to get your take on this. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis took a swipe at former President Trump over his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. You were there. You led the recovery. Here is Ron DeSantis on Piers Morgan Uncensored the other night. Watch.
Obviously, you know, the approach to COVID was different. I mean, you know, I would have fired somebody like Fauci. I think that he got way too big for his britches, and I think he did a lot of damage. My approach to leadership, you know, I get personnel in the government who have the agenda of the people and share our agenda. The way we run the government, I think, is no daily drama, focus on the big picture, and put points on the board.
Did Trump have a problem with personnel? He made some personnel decisions that were not right. I mean, he should have fired Jim Comey a lot sooner than actually Jim Comey stepped down. Isn't that right?
Well, Maria, I would tell you, as I wrote about in my book, I'm incredibly proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration. I mean, what we had...
America was number one.
What we had in our administration, and it left America until we came to that difficult end. I mean, and we dealt with the pandemic. America was more prosperous and more secure than ever before.
Should you have fired Fauci?
Well, I think during our administration, we had a lot of voices around the table. The president made decisions, particularly in those early days where we empowered governors to make decisions in their own states to make sure we had the resources to confront it. But I will tell you, after the Biden administration came in and essentially put Dr. Fauci in charge of their administration's response, then we saw vaccine mandates, then we saw more lockdowns. They saw, I mean,
all sorts of unconstitutional things.
And I will also tell you, from early on, I never understood why Dr. Fauci was so insistent at our task force meetings that the virus had not come from a Chinese lab. We had members like Dr. Redfield at the CDC that was always convinced that it had come from a Chinese lab.
And the circumstantial evidence showed,
but
like Tom
Well,
Cotton
it did. It just made sense, didn't it? That Wuhan and the Wuhan lab, but he was always very insistent about that. But I was disappointed with. I mean, it breaks my heart that after literally our administration left office, And we left the incoming administration with the supplies and with the testing and with safe and effective vaccines, that they literally lost more Americans in their first year with COVID than we lost in that first year under our administration. And I think it was the fact that they shifted away from empowering people. They shifted away from allowing decisions to be made at the state and local level. They went with vaccine mandates, and Americans paid a price. And it saddens me to think of that. But look, I'm all about learning all the lessons that we can, but I'll always be proud of what the American people accomplished, particularly in the early days of that pandemic.
And you have to be incredibly proud of the Trump-Pence administration and the policies that you put in place. You did, in fact, make a difference in this country. So when you think about the future in terms of the potential run for office as you and Karen make your decision, VP, what's most important that you would actually tackle? Because there's a lot of fires to be put out in this administration, whether it be economic, foreign policy related. So where would you focus mostly?
Well, I think to provide for the common defense is the first object of the federal government. And as you described very well a few moments ago, I mean, the disastrous policies of this administration, that withdrawal from Afghanistan, have emboldened the enemies of freedom around the world. So we need to recommit ourselves to our national defense, secure our border. And secondly, I think you need to focus on getting the economy moving again, end the war on energy. We need to turn off this gusher of spending that has launched the worst inflation in 40 years. And then I've said what a lot of people aren't talking about. We've got to be straight with the American people about a debt crisis facing our children and grandchildren of a magnitude the world has never seen. I think the American people are ready for an honest conversation about how we reduce the national debt. We can reform Social Security in a way that doesn't touch anyone in retirement today or anyone who will retire in the next 25 years. But we can we can replace the New Deal with a better deal for younger Americans. I think we're ready to have that conversation. Many people think we're not, say we don't want to talk about it. I don't think that's acceptable to my three new granddaughters, and we're going to do better.
By the way, Congressional Budget Office says that the interest payments alone will be $10 trillion in the coming decade. Mr. Vice President, it's great to see you.
Maria, great to see you.
Thanks very much for being here, Vice President Mike Pence.